Welcome back to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is Craig Domann, your host. And today on Pro Mindset, we have a gentleman, Paul Epstein, who is a sports guru that is an author, speaker, former NFL guy, former NBA guy, and he has his own podcast called Win Monday. Is that right, Paul?
Yep, you nailed it.
My man, are you a husband and a dad? What else do you have going on behind the scenes?
Oh man, all of the above. And so I'm about 3 years into what I call the hardest leadership job in the world, which is parenting, man. So baby PJ just turned 3, so we're rocking and rolling there. And then a couple months before the time we're recording this, baby Luca joined us as well. So 2 boys will hang out as a tribe before. I think we're good to go. And then, you know, my rock, my soulmate, my partner in crime, Myra, we met in a crazy Vegas, Sin City type weekend, memorial holiday of 2011, did about 3 years a long distance. And then the coolest thing is we got married on the field of Levi Stadium when I was still working at the Niners at the time. And the venue was her idea, I swear.
That's the kind of wife you want to have right there.
That's it.
That's it. Her stage for a wedding is a football field. That's pretty cool.
No doubt, man. It was an epic day, beautiful time. I mean, and look, you can't tell by the last name of Epstein, but we're both of proud Mexican descent. So there was a taquero, tequila was flowing out of barrels, and there was even a mariachi band, which was a first in Levi Stadium history. So we did it loud and proud.
Well, maybe one of these days the NFL will expand to Mexico.
Oh,
you know,
hey,
the way that, you know.
Every time they play in Estadio Azteca, I mean, it was my Niners. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but I'm telling you, they've got a massive fan base. So I know we keep talking about Europe and the UK, and it may end up there too, but no doubt if Mexico ever gets a team, they're going to represent.
Absolutely. Okay, Paul, so we could go a million different directions today.
Yep.
Holy smokes. Why don't you share with everybody what your podcast is about?
Confidence. I believe confidence is the currency by which we live, the currency by which we play. I believe it can be a competitive advantage. I know what it's like to have wavering confidence or inconsistent confidence. And then I also know when you lock in and make that your superpower day in and day out. And so really, we just frame a conversation that's part inspiration, but also very much about the tactical ways that you can win every day to build and elevate your confidence, inspire confidence from others. And it's a holistic play. You know, we should be kicking butt at work. We should be kicking butt with our family, in our community, with our friends, like in our health and our wealth. Like, I just believe winning is contagious and confidence is contagious. So we're giving people the tools, the tactics, the strategies, the mindset shifts so that they can win and thus step into every day with unshakable confidence.
Well, we may not get to any other topics today because confidence is one of my favorite. The concept is in conjunction with belief.
Yes.
Is one of my favorite topics. So let's dive into, from your perspective, what are the top 2 or 3 or 4 confidence busters? You're confident, you show up at the stadium, you show up at the arena, you show up at the tryout, you show up at the boardroom, you show up at the presentation or on stage to give a speech, and all of a sudden something happens.
Yeah.
And what you thought you had, you don't have. What are those busters that you see?
Such a great question. I am not asked that enough. Everybody always talks about how do you build confidence, which you would think of as the opposite of what you just asked. But I think you're bringing us to the more important place, which is what gets in the way and what are those busters. So I'll riff on this for a bit. For one, you will make it practically impossible to have unshakable confidence if you care too much what other people think. You're just living on other people's terms. You're trying to please them. And when you try to please people, especially in things that don't matter or don't mean something to your core, if you don't feel the deeper burn and why on why you're doing it, but somebody else does and they push it on you, or you want to impress them, or you want to look good in front of them, I am telling you that is a recipe for disaster. And I know that because I did it for countless years. I was doing things to peripherally, I can't even say that word, peripherally look good to others. And you want to grow your career and you want your boss to give you the recognition and the applause, but that's not really you. Like if you don't fully believe in it. And so my fundamental belief is to live on your terms. You just truly have to stop giving a damn what other people think when it doesn't align to your character, to your values, to who you are. But that's a big if, because until I found myself at a leadership offsite retreat when I was at the Niners, I went offsite, handful of months after that wedding I told you about, team president, all of his reports. We go 2 days, lock and load. Find your why, unearth your core values. I got obsessed. I started to connect them to my decisions and actions on a day-to-day basis because I didn't want it to feel like a distant North Star. And it wasn't until I got clear on who I am through this workshop, through the process, through the exercises that followed, that's how I formed what I call inside out confidence. All confidence is born within. So that's one, is I really, once I found myself, I stopped trying to please and impress other people. And I truly just cared authentically. How am I showing up? And is this true in the mirror? So that's one. The other one is a couple other busters. So I talked about other folks. I just actually shared another one organically. If you don't know who you are, you can't have unshakable confidence. So you could say you know who you are. You could talk about yourself in an altruistic or ambitious way. But until I knew, especially my values, more than my why, my values, that's where the rubber met the road. If you don't know your core values, then you don't have standards that you can uphold every day. And without standards, you can't have unshakable confidence because there's nothing to tether yourself to. The wind blows, adversity blows, there's a setback, a hurdle, an obstacle, and then you drift too far away because it was never anchored on anything. But the beauty of knowing your values and having confidence is you know what that center point is. And then another thing is, I believe that, yeah, that exactly. That's how I want to say this. When you think of confidence, it's not a light switch, it's a dimmer switch. Here's what I mean by that. You're not either confident or you're not confident. It's like a dimmer switch where it can go plus 1%, minus 1% by the moment, by the decision, by the action, which is a much more empowering way of thinking about confidence. I'm not an unconfident person, and I'm also not a confident person. That would be a light switch. That's a yes or no. That's a black versus white. A dimmer switch, I am in control of my confidence for better or worse every day. So in the playing offense mindset, that's a beautiful thing, because then when I get knocked down, I know that I have the ability to take it up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus get knocked out of the game. So that's another one, is the confidence. Don't think of it as a light switch on off. Think of it as a dimmer switch where you're in control of each and every decimal point and percentage point. And then let's see if there's any others. I mean, I think those are the keys, is knowing who you are, living on your terms, not over indexing on what other people think, and then treating it as a dimmer switch versus a light switch. Those would be my biggest busters.
Okay.
Oh, actually,
So how
sorry,
would you?
Craig, let me hit you with one more. This is actually just popped up in my head. Okay, so now I'm a speaker. And I take a lot of pride in my work. It's my calling. It's my craft. It's my obsession. Like I am on this world to speak. I didn't always know that, but now I can tell you with full confidence that that's who I am. However, and we all know this, one of the bigger fears in the world is public speaking. And at one point in my life, I was no different. To be honest, it wasn't even the bright lights or the big stages as a speaker. Years before I ever was a speaker, and I did it for a living, I sometimes would feel to my bones the nerves and the anxiety of speaking in a boardroom. Craig, I'm telling you, I was in front of 6 people 8 people, 10 people. But again, I care too much what other folks thought. And I wanted to look good and I wanted to be the smartest person in the room. And so I was playing the head game versus now I play the heart game. So the reason I can now speak with full confidence and I don't flinch, I don't even get the butterflies. Like I just go out on stage and rock it. It's because now I show up with my heart. Before I was just playing with my head. So it's this head versus heart dynamic. And I believe you cannot have unshakable confidence unless your heart is integrated into why you are doing whatever it is that you're doing. So when I wanted to sound like the smartest guy in the room, my confidence was wavering. Well, if other people said that was a good comment, it boosted my confidence. If they said, Paul, that's stupid, that's a horrible idea, all of a sudden it ruined my day, it ruined my week, it ruined my month because I was relying too much on this external validation. But now I don't need the standing applause. I don't need the standing, oh, I'll get it. And that's cool, but I'm not doing it for that anymore. I'm doing it to leave people better than I found them. I'm doing it in the spirit of my hero, my late father. And at the end of every speech, I say, would my dad be proud? And if that's my measuring stick of success and significance, then I can't lose. And that's why I show up confident, because I don't want to let my hero down, but it's 100% showing up with my heart versus my head.
Woo! Holy smokes, Paul. Damn. Bro, that was awesome. So I've been studying the confidence and belief for more than 10 years. I used to have stage fright. Okay.
Yep.
I used to be a people pleaser, all those things.
Yep.
So I resonate with everything you said. Everything you said there, I get it. Now we're gonna go a little bit deeper because I'm gonna give you my perspective, and see how you respond to that. Okay. So in working with professional athletes for 3 decades, one thing I noticed is that some guys just believed. And they had different levels of confidence about their skills. Where other people mixed it all together. It was one and the same. Their identity was their confidence and their belief. And how they did, it basically reflected their confidence. So just to kind of clarify, what I've done is I've broken down belief and confidence into 2 different concepts.
Okay.
Belief is about who you are.
Okay.
Confidence is about what you do. And when you separate those 2, something magical happens. Belief is a choice. It's something you get up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you get to decide, do you love yourself?
Yeah.
Are you going to live out of your heart? Are you going to care what other people think? Are those busters that you mentioned, are those going to become important or not? But confidence, even as a basketball player, I'm going to have different levels of confidence about different skills. So my handles might not be, I might not be as confident about my handles as I am about my free throw shooting. I might be really confident about my 3-point shooting, but I'm not as confident about taking it to the hole. Okay. And so don't know how that fits into your world, but it's like, it allows you to have different levels of confidence that allow you to basically monitor how you're doing and look for your areas of growth. So if you're not as confident as a basketball player about a certain aspect, whether it's playing defense or rebound, whatever it is, that's something you get to work on, right? And then there's some nights when you're real confident about your 3-point shooting and warm-ups. And you're like, man, tonight's the night. You get in the game, you got a wide open 3, you take it. You barely hit the rim. And you go 0 for 3, 0 for 4, and then you start wondering, well, is tonight or not? Is the night tonight? And so what is your perspective on what I just shared with you about belief versus confidence?
For one, I love what you just said for many reasons. Let me start off by saying that I've got 5 core values and belief is one of them. So when you talk about your perspective, your insight, your spirit about belief and defining it, I think it's beautiful. And look, I'm not a Webster Dictionary fan. I believe that we all should define these things in our own words. I don't need a dictionary to tell you what my definition of belief is, or confidence, or courage, or growth, or authenticity, or impact. I mean, that's kind of the melting pot of my values. But let me respond to what you said, belief and confidence. I love the way you separated them. And I believe that they're inextricably linked at the same time. So I can separate them, but they both can fuel each other and be oxygen to one another and feed each other. So I don't believe I can have 10 out of 10 confidence day in and day out without belief. I also know that I can't max out my belief in myself without confidence. And so, like, they are inextricably linked. But here's a really cool analogy that will probably resonate not only with you, but with everybody listening in, based on your sports background, my sports background. So 15 years, NFL and NBA executive. So I was around the top 0.01% in the world at what they did. Now, what was never lacking in those locker rooms was gifts, talents, abilities, and skills. This is like the best in the world. However, when that same person was in college, oh my gosh, infinitely better than their competition. In high school, man amongst boys. But in the pros, your gifts, talents, abilities, and skills are no longer your separator. You're in the big leagues. And so as a result, when that's no longer your separator, when you can only have so much confidence to say, I know I'm one of the best basketball players in the world. I know I'm one of the best football players in the world. It's got to go deeper. Otherwise, these guys are going to kick your ass. And so what's the difference? What's the separator? And what you said about beliefs, and you said it's who you are. I have a different word for who you are, and it bubbles up, but belief is kind of the engine behind it. So we're fully in alignment. I always say that my values are who I am, and my values have now become my standards. I literally am processing a message right now. It may become a book, it may not, but it certainly is integrated into all of my speeches. And I always say standards over goals. Standards over goals, because I was raised not by my parents necessarily, but in the professional world, it was always about goals, goals, goals. And especially in sales and in revenue and leadership, there was always this quantitative metric. My problem with goals is if you're good at what you do, you will hit most of them, but you will miss some of them. And it's usually some arbitrary thing that you're targeting or chasing. And I just felt like if a goal isn't enough to get me out of bed, then what will? And if I'm going to hit some goals and miss some goals, I never have to miss my standards. My standards are who I am. My standards are my value. In your case, my standards are what I most deeply believe in. And so if that's the case, I don't ever have to miss that. I can choose to uphold and live and lead through my standards every day of my life. Versus goals, I'm going to hit a lot, I'm going to miss a few. It just doesn't mean as much to me. It doesn't matter as much. And here's the beauty. For those of us listening in that are goal junkies and goals and goals and goals and results and outcomes, and I'm like, look, that's cool. But here's what I know for sure will happen. If you consistently show up and live your standards, you will achieve more goals. It's inevitable. It's inevitable because the best part of you is showing up every single day. So that's my quick riff on belief versus confidence. I think they're both critical. I think belief is very much, it's this transference of energy. You know, I think the most important piece of belief is in yourself. And then I also believe that the people that will succeed and win the most in life and in business, they're the ones that can inspire belief from others. And I love the Latin definition of inspire, which is to breathe life into. So when I say I'm an inspirational speaker, my mission is to breathe life into people. And the reciprocity of that is they will then believe in me, believe in what I'm saying, believe in my spirit, believe in my message. They'll believe in making new decisions and actions because of their time with me, but it started by me breathing life into them.
Amen, brother. Okay. I love how your rebuttal on that, because we are so similar in so many ways in our perspective. We might use different words, but we're very
Sure.
similar.
Yep.
One of the things that I love is that I just finished a book this week. It's called Pro Mindset. I have the word goals in there probably 2 times,
Hmm.
because goals is not what it's about.
Hmm.
It's about setting your standards,
Hmm.
which are connected to your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I've in coaching and managing players, the thing I've had, and my own boys that play college and one's playing in the pros at the moment, is the idea that your standard has to be higher than your coach's. Because
Hmm.
when your standard is
Hmm.
higher than your boss's or your coach's, you said it yourself at the jump. Confidence is an inside out game.
Yep.
Okay. Everything's an inside out game. Goals are outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well said. Well said.
Okay. Standards are inside. Purpose is inside.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are playing the game of trying to live up to your coach's standards, to his expectations, you get in a tug of war with that coach. Like, hey, he wants you to be early. What does he really mean by that? 5 minutes? 3 minutes? Is 10 minutes? He wants me to give effort. What does that mean on the field or on the court? I don't know what it means. You don't know what it means because he doesn't tell you what it means. He just wants you to give everything you got. But if you have your own standards and they're surpassing your coach's standards, just show up every day with your standards, and you don't even have to worry about your coach.
Yeah. Well
Okay.
said. Look, all leadership starts with self, and all standards start with self. And so I think if you are elevating above and beyond those around you, I think we should all have that standard. A player should have that standard, to have a higher standard than their coach. A coach should always be looking to raise their own standards. Like, bottom line, I just want to surround myself with people that are momentum machines and have this unreasonable ambition. And ultimately, it's the people that have the highest standards, whether they're the player or the coach. Those are the people that are going to win. It's clarity on what your standards are, and then the discipline and the commitment to live and lead through those standards every day. And the more consistently you can do that, I'm going to bet on you winning, whatever winning means to you.
Amen. Okay, Paul. I see this scenario a lot in sports. And even as a coach, a young player can do it. You've seen him do it many, many times. Can do it when the score doesn't matter. When the scoreboard's not close, they can do it too. But man, when it's a critical moment, it's a meaningful moment in the game. It could be a game-changing play. It's 3rd and long. It's you got to get a first down to keep the chains moving. All those kind of situations. Red zone, you got to score, you lose the game.
Yep.
There are some athletes that can perform gracefully in those moments, but the lion's share of athletes choke in those big moments. What is your explanation for that? And if your son or your player, you'll say you're coaching, you have a young man that's very talented, uber talented. He's wonderful. He's got a scholarship. Let's say you're coaching high school. He's got a scholarship to go to USC or some big school, but he can't do it when it counts the most. What do you do to coach that kid?
Couple things. One, we've already talked about purpose in this conversation, but now let me double click on it. If the reason for you making that shot or throwing the right pass to the right person at the right time in those clutch moments, the reason has to be bigger than you. There has to be someone or something that you are dedicating why you're even playing the game. Not the moment, not why you want to win, not why you want to succeed. Do you love the game? Are you playing the game for a bigger reason? When I say that I speaking is the game. I'm doing it to make my dad proud, my hero proud. Now that I am a dad, My father's legacy has become my purpose. Every day I try to live the standards to make my little guys proud, even though they don't even know what's happening in the world yet. Every single moment, if they were to listen to this conversation 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 15 years from now, I want them to be damn proud of the way I showed up in this conversation. And that's a standard. And I'm going to show up just the same whether they ever listen to it or they don't, because a standard is a standard. Now, going to your point of the clutch moments, if we have the bigger purpose and we have the deeper burn and the why, but yet we still don't always show up equally as clutch, then I believe that in a world, especially like professional sports, where, again, gifts, talents, abilities, and skills, we're not short on those things. So then why do some players show up inconsistently and then others are dialed in day in and day out? And I believe it all starts well before the moment of the bright lights. It's all in the preparation. And one of the quotes that I love the most from Seneca, philosopher Seneca, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And so that moment, that clutch moment, is the opportunity. The question is, are you prepared for that moment, for that opportunity? And some people say, oh, there's some luck involved and you've got to be in the position. And I say, okay, here's where I would come back to that individual, because initially when folks would say that, oh, well, Paul, you get lucky sometimes and you're just right place, right time. And I'm like, no. Like, I believe that you put yourself in this position for a reason. Here was what I wish I knew the gentleman's name. I know that he was a Microsoft executive, but he had a beautiful analogy and it answers your question to a T. So if we talk about luck and we talk about preparation and we talk about opportunity, he said, imagine that luck is like a bus, and a bus makes consistent stops and frequent stops at a bus stop. And imagine you're at this bus stop. Well, what's required to get on the bus? Well, you got to pay the fare. Of course, you got to pay the fare. And he said, when luck, the bus, pulls up to the stop, do you have the fare to get on the bus? Because that means you did the work. If you are prepared, then preparation gives you the fare. The luck pulling up, or the bus pulling up, is the opportunity. So do you have the fare based on your preparation to capitalize on the opportunity? And the outside world is going to call it luck or good fortune or whatever. I just believe that those that prepare and do the work in the unseen hours, they do the things that others aren't willing to do on a consistent basis. That's the preparation. It's not just to show up status quo and make that shot. That's your gifts and talents and skills. I believe in, like, Tom Brady is a great example of this. And I learned actually a very similar lesson, Craig, in sales, when they said negotiations. So I consider myself a pretty good negotiator, and I've negotiated some really big deals, and it's all good. But I'll tell you, I think one of the secret sauces of my approach is I envision and imagine every single response you could ever have for anything I'm going to say. So if I know that if I say X, you have 20 options, from I love it to I hate it to I have some questions to you're an a-hole to whatever, they're already mapped out. I've already created my conditional mental programming, and I've already been in that play before. So now when you say it, I've already played this game. I'm already there, ready for the moment. And I think that there's so many professional athletes and beyond that the first time that this moment comes up, they haven't run it through their mind 100 different times. And so as a result, emotion and pressure and stress, it's all a part of it. Versus if you've already run the mental reps, you just show up and you execute, and you can be at peace with the outcome.
Outstanding. That's outstanding. In my world, it really starts with your performance bubble. And if you operate out of a performance bubble where the things that serve you are in it and the things that aren't, you don't let in. and you have it connected to your visualization practice where you, like you described in your negotiation, you want them, you're looking for that objection because you're ready for it.
Yep.
Where the person that's not prepared is hoping that they're prepared, but they didn't prepare for the objection. They know it could happen, but they're hoping it doesn't happen. And when it does happen, their confidence goes down the tubes. And their energy goes down. They've lost the conversation. They've lost their momentum. Wherein, if you visualize yourself as a star in every movie, in every scene, in every situation, you don't care what comes because you're ready for it.
Amen.
The weather, it doesn't matter, right? So, yeah, we speak a lot of the same language. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yep.
How would you? This is a very general question, but how would you help? How should people master their performance? Just generally speaking, you get asked by somebody in the audience that hasn't heard your speech yet that says, "Hey, I want to be my best. I want to master golf or whatever it might be. What is your recipe for and plan for people to be their best?"
100%.
Mindset, mentally.
Yeah, mindset, which to me, the starting and the foundation point, using golf as an example, which is a great example because it is so much from the neck up. And it's also really damn hard. You know, like there's 99% of people that do it, whether recreationally or beyond. I mean, kind of suck at it. And it's not by accident, right? Myself included. So I'll throw myself under the bus here. But here's what I'll say is, as much as I could talk about preparation and doing the things in the unseen hours and feeling like you play the game for a greater purpose, let me get more tactical on this one, because I think that this is what is going to separate somebody's performance. It all comes back to confidence, but it's not just general confidence. I have a formula for confidence and then a practice and a process that I coach out to others when they want to show up at their most confident self. And if they show up at their most confident self, then they're going to perform at an even better clip. So the formula is confidence equals values times action. The multiplication is how consistently you do it. In other words, show me a person that takes consistent action on their values, I will show you a confident person, period, full stop. So if that's the case, no one pushes back on that. And then everybody says, okay, Paul, but how do I go about implementing something like this? And it comes back to a journaling practice that, Craig, I have coached this to thousands, from Olympians, Navy SEALs, Fortune CEOs, NFL athletes, and it works 100% of the time, provided that we consistently do it. And I've got a very specific thought on how often and how long we need to do it for. But here's the journaling exercise. Once a week, you sit down and you journal. For the week ahead, I will live my value of blank by blank. The first blank is the value that you choose. So you've got to choose a value. If you don't know your values, you can literally Google a list. I actually, in this conversation, I'll give folks access to a resource where I can send it to them, and it's free and it's awesome. So you choose a value and then you commit to one action connected to that value. So for the week ahead, I will live my value of blank by blank. Here's a couple examples. Let's say that you chose the value of joy. So I would journal something like, for the week ahead, I will live my value of joy by cooking my favorite meal. Awesome. Cool. Super small, simple, accessible. Anybody in the world can do it. I'm throwing bacon in a pan. What are you doing? Whatever brings you joy, you do you. Okay. Now let's raise the stakes a little bit. Let's hop away from joy. And second example could be something like courage. All right. So I would journal, for the week ahead, I will live my value of courage by having that challenging conversation that I've been putting off. You're not having that conversation because Paul said. You're having that conversation because courage is a core value. And that's the process. And so what you do is if you do this journaling exercise once, I promise you no permanent change, no elevated performance. I promise you nothing. Even if you did it twice, you'd be lucky to have greater performance. But here's the kicker. Once you start to do it a third week and you journal the same value for that third week, all of a sudden you're not just doing one action a week. It's exponentially growing. 3 actions, 4 actions, 5 actions. And then where the explosion comes is the 4th week. And here's why. And it's also the reason why New Year's resolutions don't work. A, we don't have a process or a system like a journal. And B, we don't stick with it long enough. And so in this case, what the social studies will tell us and science will tell us is habits, habit formation. The average person, it takes 3 to 4 weeks for a habit to form, for it to be internalized, for them to build muscle memory. So in other words, if you can commit to this journal for 4 weeks to guarantee yourself that you get past the threshold of habit formation, now it's dialed in. Because what I've seen from my clients that, again, they're some of the highest performers, highest achievers in the world, and they explode in the 4th week. And they're like, Paul, I did 8 things this week connected to the value. I took 9 actions, 10 actions, 11 actions. It explodes in the 4th week every single time because it's become a part of them. And so I would talk to this golfer, I would talk to this person that wants to perform, and I would say, A, what are your values? And B, what are the values that you need to perform at your best? And then I would commit to a 4-week sprint, one value for 4 weeks, journal. It takes 2 minutes a week, 4 times, less than 10 minutes of a time commitment over the course of a month can transform your life, can transform your performance. I've seen it time and time again. That's how I would coach somebody to higher performance.
That is amazing. It's so simple.
So simple. And simple is not easy. It is simple.
True. I think a couple of things about change. What you just described was a change agent right there.
Absolutely.
Because everybody's where they're at for a reason and they want to be somewhere else, but they're on this loop, this thought loop, and they can't change. And you just help them basically change. And then typically when you change yourself, everything else changes around you.
Amen.
Right? That is amazing. Okay. You have a system or something related to decision making as well. People make somewhere like 35,000 decisions a day. How they're going to drive to work, what they're going to wear. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
And if you go to the grocery store that day, or if you have the TV remote in your hand, it's like 50,000 because it's just exponentially more because there's so much more things that you can look at. So what is your system, formula, whatever, for decision fatigue and to become a better decision maker?
Absolutely. So you're talking to me relatively hot off the press within a handful of months of launching my latest book, Better Decisions Faster. And so when you write a book like that, a couple of things. One, you figure out some of this research like, oh my gosh, the average adult makes 35,000 decisions in a day. That's freaking crazy. I didn't know that until I did the research, but it's truly backed. Now, the majority, like you said, they're on autopilot. Turn left into the driveway, brush your teeth. You don't need a book for that stuff, I hope. But then I call them your MVDs. So like in sports, MVP is a most valuable player. And MVD are your most valuable decisions. So higher stakes, higher consequence, higher value. They mean more, they matter more. And with these MVDs, the compounding effect of making good decisions leads to a great quality of life. Show me the quality of your decisions. I'll show you the quality of your life. It's true for your health. It's true for your wealth. It's true for your career. It's true for your relationships. If you're making better decisions consistently over the months and years, you're going to have an awesome life. But the opposite is also true. Bad decisions lead to not so great of a life. So for me to write a book like Better Decisions Faster, so said Captain Obvious. Okay, Paul, phenomenal. Yes, thanks, coach. I should make better decisions faster. And that wouldn't take anybody very far because it's so obvious. So what I wanted to do was reverse engineer from my greatest decisions to my worst decisions, my coaching clients, the folks that I train and I consult, I advise, the relationships I've built off stage after I speak. I really did a comprehensive audit over the years of just what separates good decisions from bad decisions. And so where we landed was this process, and it's actually an equation, and I'm about to break it down. This will be like a 1 or 2 minute masterclass on how we make better decisions faster. So there's 3 dynamics at play: your head, your heart, and your hands. Head is your mindset. Heart is your authenticity. Hands are action. So head, heart, hands, mindset, authenticity, action. Now, they're not isolated icons or symbols. The equation is this: head plus heart equals hands. In other words, when deciding whether to use your hands, whether to take action, there's 2 checkpoints: head and heart. Head, do I think it's a good idea? Heart, do I feel it's a good idea? And just like when you're driving a car, Craig, and you and I, we know exactly what to do every single intersection. Green is go, red is stop, yellow we assess. That's how the equation works. When your head and your heart are on board, it's a green light. 10 out of 10 times take that action. The opposite: no head, no heart, red light. Don't do it or stop doing it. And then when one of the 2, head or heart, is on board, it's a yellow light, and we got to solve for the gap. So I wrote the book Better Decisions Faster, and I introduced the head, heart, hands equation so it would inspire more green lights in our life. I wrote the book to create the awareness so we stop running reds. And I wrote the book to conquer and navigate the messy middle of yellow. And that's been the biggest payoff so far. Greens and reds are largely about awareness. You want more of one and you need to stop running the other. And yellow is freaking hard. And it is the messy middle. And if you want to tell me how it's changed the most lives after reading the book and applying the head, heart, hands equation, folks finally know how to navigate and conquer that yellow.
Let's stay in the yellow.
Yeah.
What is the yellow? Let's just dive into the yellow. Give an example that maybe all of us can relate to.
Sure.
That is a yellow, but maybe we think it's a green.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go here. All right. And by the way, we 100% should talk about the yellows because this is the stuff that's going to be most helpful for everyone listening in. Let me start by saying this. There's a good yellow and a bad yellow. And the bad yellow can be more dangerous and damaging than a red. Because at least a red, you snap your fingers, and even if you were doing something bad, you stop doing it. It was a red, and so you stop running the red. But the wrong yellow can linger. The bad yellow lingers for months or years, and it's devastating. And to level set on this one, think of it like this: head versus heart. Which do you think has the greater potential to change over time? Like if I ask you, Craig, hey, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but if I gave you a month or 2 to elevate your mindset or work on your mindset, could you do it? Sure. Like, of course, like,
Yep.
I'm not saying it's easy, but you could work on your mindset, overcome a self-limiting belief, whatever it is. But if I said, hey, Craig, you going to wake up with a new heart tomorrow? Nah, you're not. And so we're lying to ourselves. So the bad yellow is when only the head is on board because the heart is never going to join for the party. So I'll give an example here. And it's a work example, but it's universally applicable. So here's a yellow light that I struggled with constantly over the years before I ever knew it was a yellow light. And it was the bad yellow. So I was a leader of massive sales teams. And in a room full of a lot of alphas and high performers and high producers, we were generating revenue at the top ranks of the NFL and NBA. Not all of them, but I'll tell you, there were some folks that they were a little difficult to manage, to be nice about it. Okay. They killed it on the scoreboard. They sold a ton of widgets, but man, they were tough to deal with. They were tough to manage. They weren't positive with their teammates, right? And so my head said, keep them. I love the performance. I love the production. We've got goals. We got pressure. We got expectations. We got to keep boss happy. So my head said, keep them. But deep down inside, my heart knew they weren't a keeper. But guess what I did? Because I wanted to grow my career. I wanted to make the big bosses happy. I wanted to keep selling widgets. So we kept them. And then months or years go by, and we landed in a place where now I've got locker room problems. I've got culture problems. I've got engagement problems. And then some of my better people were like, well, if you're going to tolerate this bad behavior, I'm going to bounce. So now I had retention problems. And then the marketplace started to hear about this, and now I had recruiting problems. And if I could talk to the Paul of years ago in this situation, I would have said, Paul, you don't have culture problems. You don't have engagement problems. You don't have retention problems. You don't have recruiting problems. You got a yellow light problem. That's what was going on. I tolerated the bad yellow. And so any relationship in your life where your head says keep them, but your heart knows they're not a keeper, that's an example of a bad yellow. And so I'm not saying it's an easy decision, but you know what the right decision is because your heart's never going to join for the party. That yellow will never, ever, ever, ever be a green, but you justify it to feel like a green. I wanted to sell more widgets, so I said, oh, this is a green light locker room. You know why? Because the scoreboard looked good. So using your intro, a yellow that feels like a green, I convinced myself it was a green, but it was a very bloody yellow.
You just eloquently described the process and thinking of an NFL draft. There's a reason why 50% of the players that get drafted in the first round disappoint. There's a reason why they're busts after 2 years. It's because they looked the part.
Yeah.
They had the potential. They could do it at times. They didn't do it consistently. They didn't care. They didn't love the sport. They don't want to work hard. They felt like the finish line was the draft, not Canton, Ohio. And so what happens is when you're a general manager, these guys are the sexy ones. These bad yellow lights are the sexy guys.
Yeah.
You can't say no. And then the other thing I would say is that just for the normal Joes like myself, it's when you're the bad yellows are when you pay too much attention to the scoreboard.
Yes.
And you stay in a bad job because it pays well. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't fill you. It doesn't motivate you. You're not passionate about it, but you like your paycheck.
Yep.
Because it's a bad yellow. Right? And there's a lot of bad yellows. I mean, my brain is, when you were sharing that, my brain was going crazy on bad yellows that I've done. I've had a lot of those. Everybody has.
Do. We all do. I would say from me advising post book about a lot of these scenarios, 80% of our difficult decisions are yellows. So most of life, sorry to break this to everybody listening in, we're going to be dealing with a whole lot of yellows for the rest of our lives. Now we have a process for how to identify them because it's so much easier to get through a yellow if you know it's a yellow, because now you just wake yourself up before months and years go by. But here's what I would say to the person, because, oh my gosh, Craig, I hear so many times, well, I'm in a yellow light job, but I need the paycheck. I know this isn't the forever thing. And I would say, okay, cool. Now that we've identified that, obviously your head says, I want to feed my family. I need the money. Got it. And I'm not telling you to take an irresponsible risk and bounce tomorrow. However, if you know that this is a yellow that will never become a green, I would challenge and invite everybody to ask, what are the different micro decisions and micro actions that you can take before you quit? It might take you 9 months or a year and a half to physically take the jump. But what do you need to do? Do you need to save money? Do you need to go on some informational interviews? Do you need to have some coffees with people in an industry or at a job or at a company that would excite you more? That does feel like a green light. These are little steps that don't require you to take a financial risk. They don't require you to put your family at jeopardy, or those are the types of things. When I coach people through yellows, I say, if you know that this is a yellow or a red, then what are the little steps that you can take consistently? Oh, you want to start your own company? Great. Gone are your nights and weekends. Every single night and weekend, from the point that you make that mental decision, you should be obsessing about the business model and the business plan, and you're still keeping your family safe, and you're still. So that's my point. Are you willing to do those little things? Because people get paralyzed. I wrote the book to get rid of paralysis and the worst decision, which is indecision. The worst decision you can make when you're suffering from yellows and reds is no decision.
I would venture to say that your success in the bad yellow decisions defines you more than any of the other ones.
100%. 100%.
So I see this happening in sports all the time. The bad yellow for a coach is when he's playing a young man, or it could be a young lady too. But let's just take football, okay? In the NFL, you're paying the guy because you're paying the guy. You're playing him because you're paying him, not because he's the best one. You don't want to upset the apple cart. The other players, QB2's got the locker room.
Yep.
Okay. And I could go through a million of those scenarios in sports, especially the football world, where the decision that the coach is making is the bad yellow decision.
Well said.
I want to wrap this up, but I want you to put a bow around it. What have we not talked about that the Pro Mindset podcast audience needs to hear, that is then going to be followed up by, you're going to share where your podcast is and where they can find you on social channels. So if somebody's interested in your book and things like that, they can find you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And look, I think mindset, since we're talking about pro mindset, I know that through studying and analyzing and researching head, heart, and hands, I know that the mind can be a tricky beast. So for me, I want to share something that has allowed me to overcome my own demons, overcome my own many imperfections, and what's allowed me to win more every day with unshakable confidence, because I can't describe my entire life like that. It always looked good on the outside, but I didn't always feel great on the inside. And now, brother, I feel dialed. Like I'm not saying I don't have bad moments or bad things don't happen, but like here was the big shift. And I've alluded to some of this, but I'll share a quick story, and then I'll invite folks to pour their hearts into how they would respond to this. My question for everybody is, who is your hero? That person in the world that you would do anything for. You would walk to the end of the earth and back, whether they're still living or they're with you in memory. For me, my hero is my dad, a hero that I lost at 19 years old. And by trade, he was a continuation high school teacher. If you're not familiar with continuation school, these kids have been given up on. Craig, you talked about belief. Nobody believes in them. It's a broken home, a disadvantaged background, bad socioeconomic situations. The hope and prayer is that they don't go on to become a statistic on the street. And my dad chose that environment intentionally after teaching in traditional schools for years, because he felt that he could have more impact in that environment. So years after he passes, I'm walking around in the same neighborhood that he taught at, and a few of his former students would come up to me, and a couple of things really stood out. One gentleman told me that my dad was the first person that ever believed in them. Another told me, your dad gave me a reason to think that tomorrow is worth it. Until that point, I'm in my mid-20s at the time. I never knew that there are people around us every day that don't feel that tomorrow is worth it. And that's where I learned the power of leadership, how personal it gets, impact, what's possible when you leave people better than you found them. And ever since then, I made it my lifelong goal and mission to say that if I could have 1/10 of the impact that my dad had in this world, then it'll be a great life. And so now I pass the baton to everybody listening in to ask you, who is your hero? That person that you would do anything for. And I want you to dedicate the rest of this year to that person. Because here's what I know to be true. You will let yourself down before you let the most important person in your life down. So for me, making my dad proud, that's the measuring stick of success and significance and purpose and impact and legacy. And so for you, you have that person, whether living or in memory. And that's what I want to share as we wrap this up, because I fully believe that this external dedication to the most important person in your life, you're going to win more. You'll be more intentional with your actions. You'll populate your life with more green lights. You'll stop running reds. You'll navigate the yellows much easier because you're trying to make the most important person in your life proud. And that's your hero.
This may sound like a crazy question, Paul. What if somebody doesn't know who their hero is? How do you identify your hero? There's probably no magic formula for that.
No, there's not.
You...
Yeah, it's a great question. I've full transparency, I've never been asked this, and I love that you did ask it. Because yeah, you're right. Like we think of family as this kind of utopian thing, and sometimes it's not. And like, I want to respect that. And here's what I would say. Maybe here's a good analogy for you. Let's take the hero label off and let's say mentor. I always get asked the question, well, Paul, what if I don't have a mentor? You know, you had the great boss, or you had the great this, or you had the coach or the advice. And I'm like, okay, what's a mentor's job? Well, a mentor's job is to positively change your life and to advise you. I said, okay, cool. Well, let me ask you this. You said you read my book, right? Yeah, I did. Okay. Did the book positively change your life? Well, yeah. Do we know each other super well like that? No, actually, Paul, like we're just virtual coffee and acquaintances and that's it. I say, okay, but I'm serving the same purpose as a mentor. And it kind of was this aha moment to say, you don't need to know your mentor. Sometimes an author that you'll never meet will be your mentor. You listen to their podcast and they're your mentor. And so we need to get creative on how we define these things. So for somebody that doesn't have a clear hero, I would get a little bit more creative and say, who is a person, even if you don't know them, that you admire and respect and want to uphold the same values and standards that they have? It could be a historical figure. It could be whoever it is. Who is that person? What are the traits, the qualities, the characteristics, the attributes that they role model? And then that person, at least temporarily, can become your hero, and you stay open-minded to eventually maybe having a closer relationship with the hero. But that's how I would respond to that.
Excellent. Okay, Paul. This is your opportunity to share with the audience where they can find you, where they can find your book, where they can listen to you on your podcast, all those types of things.
Absolutely. So the home and hub for everything is paulepsteinspeaks.com. And I have a gift that I want to share with folks, especially as we were just riffing on green, yellows, and reds and making better decisions faster. Here's my gift, and it combines everything we've talked about. On my website, paulepsteinspeaks.com, main nav bar, you're going to see confidence quiz. It's going to give you a confidence score of 1 to 100 in less than 5 minutes. Here's the beauty. You're not only going to get a confidence score, you're going to get a resource on the back end that tells you your score in your head, the score in your heart, the score for your hands. It's going to help you with greens, navigate yellows, and stop running reds. And in that resource, it also has a template for the values journal that I shared earlier. Confidence equals values times action. You're going to have to pick a value. All of that. It starts with clicking on the confidence quiz at paulepsteinspeaks.com. And of course, to bring me in as a speaker, everything that you need is right there. And last but not least, there's a little website called Amazon where you can pick up either book, Power of Playing Offense, or Better Decisions Faster.
I'm going to sign up for that bad boy. Hey, I want to thank you. This has been a wonderful interview today. I appreciate your energy, your personality, your perspective, your heart. It's been an awesome, awesome podcast. I just want to thank you for being on today.
Thank you, Craig. You've been a massive green light in my life today, so I appreciate you, brother.
Okay. Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.